coming. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Very excited to have this amazing panel with us today. Kick off with a huge thanks to WIZZ&CO, whose amazing offices this is, with beautiful terrace. If you don't know who they are, probably every outdoor advert that you've ever seen is that's them. And actually, they've got a great new sustainability story that actually outdoor advertising is proven as the most sustainable form of advertising, which is exciting. So congratulations. And also to On Repeat as well, who are sustainability experts and refillables. So we couldn't put it on today without them. So thanks very much. A bit about me, if you don't know who I am. I'm Wiz. I'm a consumer and retail expert. I've spent the last 20 years working in the retail industry. I spent 12 years working at Selfridges, which was amazing. I was head of beauty buying. I then was director at Cowshed and Soho Home at the Soho House Group. And for the last 6 years, I've had a consultancy business working with major retailers such as Ocado, Next, Fenwick, brands such as Unilever, Dermalogica, and then also doing strategy mentoring to over 100 brand founders. So helping them scale through their positioning, their B2B relationships with retailers, and kind of how to create that hype for a brand. So we're all here today to hear about how consumers are engaging with sustainability. It's a hot topic, a hard one to navigate, and one where definitely a lot of people are fearful of getting it wrong. Greenwashing is everywhere we look, and I think more and more brands and people working for brands are getting more confused and I think more scared as well of how to navigate what's happening and how to do the right thing, because no one intentionally, well, I don't think most people intentionally don't want to greenwash, but then how do you evolve kind of in the market? So it's a great topic to be talking about today, and I'm really excited to have my experts on this panel. So we've got Chloe, who's the founder of Bramley Products. We've got Estelle, who's the founder of Necessary Good. Dan, who's a packaging technologist and sustainability consultant. And also Laura, who's the founder of Evolve Beauty. So really delighted that they're all here to tell us about their sustainability journey and their expertise and how they've kind of developed over the years and what they're doing and what's going to be happening in the future. So it's going to be a great conversation. We're going to be going through a series of questions and then we'll have questions at the end. And then also we've got a bit of time at the end where I've kind of created 4 little networking groups. Everyone's got an A, B, C or D on their badge, which they may or may not have noticed. So we'll go into smaller little groups where we can then kind of carry on the conversation, talk about the different topics. Speakers will be in those groups as well, and also some sustainability experts that we've got in the room as well. So we'll be able to have a great conversation and network and kind of make some deeper connections as well. So to kick off, would you all like to do a quick intro of kind of you and your business? And
yeah, hi, I'm Chloe. I am the founder of Bramley. We are a natural bath and body product range. We are in quite a few hotels and pub loos, so that's probably about 70% of our business. And we're also in John Lewis and Fortnum Mason, and then the rest, the other 30% is sort of direct to customer. So we have our Bramley Core range, which is all bath and body products, and then we also have Little Bee, which is our children's range. We have Digby, which is our dog collection, and we also have just launched Bramley Skin. So that's really exciting. So we're hoping to launch that into some spas as well.
Fantastic. Keeping you busy?
Yeah.
Estelle?
Hi everyone, I'm Estelle Kaparova. I'm the founder of Necessary Good. We do refillable skincare essentials. We started a year ago, so we're very new, so I'm very lucky to be with these seasoned experts. We have been learning so much over this past year, so we've been iterating and just really taking on feedback, and I'm really excited for next year because we are working on new stuff, and I think it's going to be really exciting.
Dan Cobbins, I am packaging technology sustainability consultant. I run Packman Consulting. I've got over a decade experience in packaging, engineering, machinery and material sciences. and I use that to support businesses in making more sustainable and material choice.
I'm Laura Rudo, the founder of Evolve Organic Beauty. I set up Evolve just over 15 years ago, and my vision was to create a range of products where it would have goodness built inside the products, so that we didn't have to worry about whether we were doing good for the planet. We could just concentrate on selling more really good products. The main things we've really focused on with sustainability have been our certifications, our organic and natural certification, cruelty-free and vegan, and then also trying to make our packaging as sustainable as possible. So we've always tried to use recyclable materials, and also anything we can that's made of recycled plastic or compostable paper, whatever is the greenest option. We've also done work on things like our carbon emissions. So we've looked at scope 1, 2 and 3, and we've been offsetting that. We're not allowed to say we're carbon neutral anymore, because that would be greenwashing. And so now we're signed up to net zero, and we're on the pathway to try and reduce our emissions. And we've sort of signed up to commit to reduce them by 50% by 2030, which seemed a long way away when we made that commitment. And now we're trying to look at how we'll actually really do that, because that's really difficult. We're also now a B Corp, so I'm involved with Oriel from Elemis, who's there, in the B Corp coalition. There's a beauty coalition of 80 different certified B Corps who are all coming together to try and help to move the beauty industry forward. So we make our products in Hertfordshire in our own studio, which is something different to most brands, and that gives us the ability to control our supply chain and understand where everything comes from, and we're really innovative. So last year we launched 10 new products. We have 50 products in total. We're in 40 countries, and about half of what we sell is export. And then we're in places like John Lewis, Holland and Barrett, Ocado, Whole Foods, Planet Organic, and then we have an online site as well.
Thank you. I mean, and I'd encourage everyone to connect on LinkedIn as well. I'm a big LinkedIn fan, and if you've got any takeaways and thoughts of today as well, please do post them and tag everyone as well, because I always think it's interesting once gone home, digested things, had thoughts, and kind of we can carry that conversation on again through LinkedIn. So I'm going to start with the elephant in the room. So as I said before, many brands are scared of getting things wrong, being accused of greenwashing. I'd love to hear kind of what's your advice and experience, your journey so far.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of I think greenwashing's been around a long time. I mean, you can go into Boots or Superdrug and you can see something that says organic lavender hand wash, and actually the only thing that's organic about that is like 0.01% of the lavender. So I think it has been around a long time, and I think therefore it's hard at the moment to sort of be able to change people's mindsets. And then for instance pouches, we were looking at pouches for a long time. We wanted to launch into pouches, and a lot of brands said 80% less plastic is used in this pouch, but actually the plastic that's used is the one that you can't recycle. So actually that was a lot of greenwashing. I think as brands, you just need to basically be completely honest with your customers about what you are doing, and you put your hand up if you're sort of not doing as well as you want to do, or striving to do things, and just be completely honest. And
how have customers react to that? Have you had much feedback?
Yeah, generally they're as long as you say, look, our plastic is, it's biopolymer, but we're looking to move to PCR.
Yeah.
Then I think they understand and they can see it and they actually appreciate it because we're being honest.
Yeah. I think that's the big thing, is transparency and communication. And I also think as well, it's a great communication, I suppose, a content strategy as well. I mean, I think a key thing about building a brand is kind of how you create that emotive connection with the customer, when it's more about than just communicating, here's the product, buy it. It's how do you create that hype for the brand, but you also need to get those customers to understand what you're doing. So if it's something that you're able to use as a kind of a content theme and take them on that journey as well, it can be really powerful. Estelle, what are your thoughts?
I think I agree with Chloe. I think we need to be honest. I think that sustainability is such a broad and big term, and it's hard to be perfect. So you have to prioritize, and then I think you just have to clearly and concisely communicate to the consumer what you prioritized and why. and just have a strong argument for it. And I think there will always be people who don't like what you're doing and then people who like what you're doing. And I think you just, you have to have your priorities and stick to it, because doing everything is hard and I think it's confusing. And I think if we're being, realistic, consumers have not that much time to really understand what you're doing and why you're doing it. So you have to prioritize.
Yeah, I think it's also like reducing the friction as well, isn't it, with customers? Like there's lots of refill stations, but if you've got to take your refills to the shop and you've forgotten your bag with the I mean,
just won't do it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us are used to having a reusable bag now, but gosh, that's taken, I don't know how long we've been using those, 10 years or something, for that to happen. I remember a year and a half ago going to America and getting out my reusable bag and everyone looking at me like it was absolutely crazy, even in New York. And then in middle America, literally buying 2 drinks at the gas station, and the car was right there, and this guy being like, take the plastic bag. I was like, I don't need a plastic bag. He was like mortally offended that I was taking his plastic bag and I was walking with 2 drinks to the car. So it's that shift change as well that can take time. And still reusable bags, we're not there yet. So it's like you say, let's not complicate things, and how can you make things as seamless as possible, because it is complicated and you've got to take customers on that journey of of understanding, and different customers are at different stages as well. Yeah. Laura, what are your thoughts?
I think certification is really helpful, and we've gone down that path, but we did have to prioritise them, so we couldn't do them all on day one. Organic was the first one we really went for, and we've gone with Cosmos, organic and natural. So not everything has made it to the organic level, but every single ingredient gets screened by Cosmos, and they're looking for a number of different things. They're looking for potential solvents or contaminants and things that aren't allowable according to their definition of what could be in an organic and natural product. Whenever anyone says to me, well, there's no definition of clean, I go, well, Cosmos Natural is a pretty good start, so why don't you get that certification? Because that's someone else's definition of it, which is a really good thing, because it means someone else does all the legwork for me, but it also means it's clear what it actually means, and I haven't just kind of marked my own homework, which I think is really important. So we've then gone and got cruelty-free and vegan, and we sort of said, oh yeah, we're vegan, we don't use milk, we don't use honey, we don't use any, we're vegetarian as well. But actually when we went and did the work on it, we realised, oh, there's a tiny bit of egg emulsifier in the xanthan gum we used to use. So it was only when we actually went and did the certification that some of those little very small details came out of the woodwork. So if a brand hasn't done the certification, they probably don't even know that whether they're vegan and all the other things. So it's important, I think, to actually go through and do the work. And actually we have we're probably slightly guilty of doing all of the things, which means it is hard for us to communicate, because we've tried to be green and sustainable in every single way. And we probably care more about it than our customers do, I think. And to some extent they're busy, but they know that we've done the work for them and they've trusted us to think about it for them and obsess about it. And so we have.
Fantastic. And over what period of time how long does each stage take?
So we started Evolve, we launched it in 2009. It looked completely different then. It had recycled polypropylene. It was from milk bottle packaging. So that was sort of part of our story. It looked totally wrong. The brand market fit was terrible, because everyone was looking for something that looked like Neil's Yard, and it looked like it had come down from outer space because it was all like plasticky. It was very, very very recycled, but that wasn't right at all. It took me 6 years to get the packaging right and kind of get product market fit and get the product that people actually wanted to buy. We had the organic certification at that point, and the cruelty free, and I mean we did a lot, and this was 2009 we were launching, so we were a little bit ahead of the curve on that stuff. But then when we moved to our own studio, which we did in 2015, we didn't have the bandwidth to do all of those certifications, and we didn't have a third party. So we got rid of, I think, pretty much all of them, and then gradually over the last 10 years or so, we've got them all back. We started with organic, and then we've kind of gone down the list, and then most recently we've got the B Corp certification.
Fantastic. So Dan, where do we start? How can brands be more sustainable packaging? There's obviously so many different places to start or phases.
It's interesting, because I mean you've all said and hit on so many points that I have conversations around and I talk about, and sort of when I'm working with brands, we discuss. But I think that actually drawing it right back to the beginning, it's understanding what sustainability means. When the term sustainability came out in the mainstream, it was very much a branding term. It was very much a gimmick to help sell. However, it has evolved so much more than that into something that it wasn't before in the first place. So for me, I would always start by asking, what is it you're trying to achieve? When you say sustainable, what does sustainable mean to you? Because it is almost a personal thing at this point. It's become such a nuanced word that we need to understand what we're trying to achieve. What is it that is sustainable? The technical definition, actually sustainable isn't achievable. Because sustainable by definition is that we take something that will regrow in its place at no impact. But we know that everything we do has an impact. So actually, technically speaking, sustainable we can never be. But we can try and head towards that knowing that it's an unachievable goal. But what actually do we want to get out of that? What impact do we want to have, and how do we reduce that or move that issue elsewhere? Setting definitions for any terminology you're using is a critical thing, because it gives you something really clear to communicate to your consumer, or in my case, your client, that understands, so you're both on the same page, you're understanding, this is the message I'm sending, this is where I want to go. I think that's a really best place to start, because only then can you start building on, actually, we do certifications, and certifications are fantastic, but without defining those certifications of what's involved with those, you can't get a certification. Definitions are the absolute bottom of everything we need to start with. And going to your plastic bag comment, actually, you hit on one of the other biggest, and I think it actually possibly is the biggest point in sustainability, is it's a culture thing. You care about your packaging more than the consumer. Yes, I love packaging. I care about it more than most people I walk past in the street. I will go into a supermarket, and my wife has banned me from coming with her, because I will stand down an aisle, I'll walk down any aisle, and I will stand there and I will study, because I want to understand why they've done this, what are they doing that, and what are they saying about this, what are they communicating with us, because with branding it's such an emotional piece of that brand. You are talking as that brand. So actually you want to get to know that brand like a person, understand actually what makes them tick, what are they trying to say with this, and how have they done that? Could they have done it better? Is actually a conversation that they need to have to really realign where they're going. Are they wandering off the mark without realising it through what they're saying? Are they inadvertently greenwashing as a consequence? It is so easy to greenwash. It isn't an intentional thing, like you said. For most people, it's not intentional. There are the odd few which will quite brazenly do it and not care, but most people do not tend to go out and try. They do it accidentally by not understanding the full supply chain from where it comes from to where it goes. And actually that in itself is a hugely challenging task. To understand how it comes out of the ground, how it returns to the ground, is an enormous piece of work. Some people do this with carbon footprinting, but actually there's a lot more than just that to understand to get through to that message. And it's understanding that definition at the beginning will help you build out that journey on how you understand that supply chain.
I think that's a really key point, and it goes back to, I suppose, all of the themes around not having too many messages and making it too confusing for the customer as well. Just being, okay, this is the one thing we're going to focus on, because no one can do anything. I mean, everyone's here to build a business, and actually the bigger you build your business, the more impact you can make on the sustainability front as well. So I see a lot of brands trying to do everything. And it's like, okay, well, if you can hone in on one thing and do that really well, then further down the line you can make more impact and give more back as well. So yeah, interesting. Thank you. So Estelle, can you share what your sustainability initiatives are and how customers are reacting to them as a new brand?
Yeah, so we started with refills from Ben's wonderful on repeat business, so home compostable refill pouches. And I think when you say composting, people love it, because I think consumers are smart now and they know that there's some issues with recycling, and so when you say compostable, they love it. However, I do think there's still a lack of consumer education, because when I would ask the customers, oh, what did you do with the refill pouches, they would be like, oh, I just threw it away. And I was like, oh, I guess, it's not the worst thing, but ideally you have a home compost. And so I think that was really interesting. And then a big learning for me, and this is something that we're now really bullish about, I think people say they care about sustainability, and I think they do, but when we led with sustainability first, product second, it just wasn't working. And then when we did product first, sustainability second, it was like a completely different result. So I think that people care about it and people love new sustainable initiatives, but it has to be easy, and I think product has to be first.
And was that your messaging or your kind of?
Yeah, everything.
Yeah.
So like the messaging, the website, the ads, like we had to basically like change a lot.
Okay.
And really kind of think, when before I started, I had all these assumptions from doing like customer interviews, and people said, of course they care about sustainability. It's so important to me. But then when you actually go out into the real world, it would be like, oh, but what does this product do? What does it do for me? What does it do for my face? And fair enough, I get it. So I kind of realized, I think the message has to change. It just does.
See you nodding a lot, Laura.
Yes, I totally agree, and I think that the golden thing is if you can find a win-win, where the product being natural and organic makes it a better product for the customer. So before I started my business, I was doing a sort of bit of research all about ethical brands. I'm very interested in what makes a brand ethical, and I interviewed Craig Sands, the founder of Green and Blacks, and he was telling me this amazing story about how when the beans were grown fair trade, they partnered with the farmers, they made the beans less mouldy, which made the harvest better, gave the workers more income, and it made the beans more delicious because they weren't bitter anymore. And I thought that was such an amazing example of a win-win. And it's hard to find win-wins. So one thing we've done recently with one of our initiatives is we found this really cool ingredient that comes from the Kalahari Desert. So we've been really interested in regenerative ingredients where there is a sustainability story, because when you grow the ingredient, it has some extra benefits as well as just, not being bad, but there's actually something good about it. So this ingredient grows where really nothing else grows. It was seen as a weed. Grown in areas of South Africa where literally it's been horrible drought, so there've been no income sources for these communities. They turned this crop into something that they could then make into a skincare ingredient. Beautiful properties on the skin, lovely, lovely ingredient. It's in our little lip gloss thing that we launched in the autumn. Really, really nice, beautiful images and things you could tell. A lovely video of where it all comes from, a lovely emotive story. So great to tell that story, easy to tell, but also really great benefits, both for the skin and also for the community. And we could say we found a regenerative ingredient that's actually turning desert back into soil, because it's helping, the roots are helping stop that then from blowing away. And so that, I think, is a brilliant win-win. It's just hard to find those win-wins, because a lot of things you're trying to say, you're sort of banging on about sustainability, and exactly like you were saying, when we spend a lot of time talking about that, we find that we don't get such good customer engagement. People do like knowing we do it, but they also just want to know about the fun products side of things too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we have quite a few online. We do a lot of the refills, so we have big 5 litres that we sell to customers in 1 litres, and we've got the refill pouches. And actually, the customers, they do love that. They really respond to that, especially when it's like 20% off on but yeah, we found that actually, it's they love it, and
just how customers react to it.
And the pouches especially. I mean, it's just such a lovely story. What Ben and Michaela have achieved is just when I read an article about Ben, and I was like, hurrah, because I've been looking for pouches for so long. And it's just brilliant that they can, and the customers love it. So we're just extending out with the pouches.
I think it's interesting around the price as well, isn't it? Is that resistance of people want to do the right thing, but it costs more.
Yes, exactly. It's got to be easy for them.
Again,
and make it worth their while.
Easy and worth their while. So Dan, what do brands need to consider when they're kind of developing their packaging around products that can be refilled?
There's a couple of ways of looking at it. It depends on the product you're producing, because you've got criteria you need to hit first, and that is, you're producing something that the consumer wants, that it is fit for purpose and it will do exactly what it is, what you want it to do. These are criteria you must have. If it doesn't protect the formula, if it doesn't preserve it, then actually it's not appropriate for what you need. So the base criteria must be met first. If it's a refill pack, you've got the opportunity to use it as a better branding experience and opportunity opportunity, because in theory it's a pack that the consumer will keep on their shelf. They can keep reusing over and over again. When you are talking about the refill packs themselves, you've got to ensure that that refill pack is less impactful than the main pack. If it isn't, then actually you need to start asking the question, why are we using refill? Why didn't you sell the main pack again? So it's understandable. We had a conversation about pumps earlier, and obviously pumps are one of the worst items you can get, because there is no way of recycling most of them. And we spoke about the material technology behind it, and there aren't actually many out there that are properly recyclable. You get these that say, we don't have a metal spring in it, but actually there's a glass ball in pumps. But also you've got these that say they're fully plastic, but often they are multiple different plastics in one component. Now, you wouldn't know this unless you really looked into the technical details of that specification, which is obviously where I come in and I look at these things. But as a brand owner without that skill on board, you can be very easily misled by suppliers giving you false advice on that. So you've really got to be careful. But items like that are hard to recycle, try and encourage your consumer to buy that once and reuse, wash. Give thorough instructions on how to reuse that. Give thorough instructions on how to clean. And I know this sounds ridiculous because we all know how to clean, but actually one of the biggest risks in refill technology is contamination. You know, the reason the packaging has a use by date on it is because after that amount of time exposed to UV light or oxygen, your formula goes off, and that can then contaminate, particularly with face care products and things like this. These are really, really conscious things you need to think about. So you've got to make that really clear. That's one of the number one priorities. With the composting point you made there, actually 85% of UK compost bins are not managed properly. So actually they don't work particularly well. I'm coming on to that. It's not bad, it's good, it's fine. But what we've got an opportunity, being brands, is you've got a way of communicating with your consumer, of having a personal relationship with that consumer. You have the ability to educate them, which is a real problem we've got in this country, is that we have a lack of education on how to manage your compost bin. Because there are only two ways of composting, and that is through industrial composting, which is your food waste taken home. You could put these in the food waste there, they would be processed in the way that would be the Ben's invention. Or you've got the compost bin in your garden, managed correctly, absolutely you'll get compost in. If it's not, obviously they just sit there. And the risk, of course, with compost is that people become lazy because they want convenience, they just throw it on the ground. If you throw a compostable item on the ground, it won't degrade the same as it will in the correct environment. They do need the correct environment. Otherwise, they will degrade at the same speed as their natural counterparts in that area, which is, can be 3 or 4 years in some instances. So it's understanding what you want to give to that consumer, what you want them to keep, and also, that experience within that, so you can make a really fancy platform to keep, but also educate them on how to look after that so that they can make that experience over and over again in a safe way for them, particularly in cosmetics. This is a risk.
I've talked a lot about brands and customers, and whose responsibility do you think it is to kind of make this change in sustainability?
Well, I think it's probably everyone.
Yes.
We all have to do that. But I think from a brand point of view, if we can make it, if we can do a lot of the legwork and give the customers the products in a sort of as sustainable way as possible, then they can just be happy that we have done that, and then they can then throw it away. Because basically when we sorry. Sorry, go on to someone else. I've lost it.
That's okay. Talking about the difference whether it should be with brands, or obviously everyone, but brands or customers, and kind of how we bridge that gap, I suppose.
I think it's on the brands, to be honest. I think if we want change, it's on the brands, just because, as I said, I think there are very eco-conscious individuals who really do put in a lot of effort, but most people are busy and they don't have time, and I think they just have idealized versions of themselves maybe, and they do want to do better, but they have very busy lives. We live in London, I get it. So I think brands just need to take the responsibility and make it as easy and as efficacious as possible for them to be more sustainable, or whatever the definition is for that person.
It feels like the big theme is how cleans itself, apparently. We've got to do the disclaimer at the beginning. Give it some 10 seconds? No, it's apparently it's like 10 seconds. Not that loud. Carry on. It really stops
Yeah, she
wherever
put it
it is.
eloquently. That was what I was going to
Okay.
say.
What she said.
I said that too,
Yeah,
she says.
yeah, it was, yeah.
I have something to add.
Yeah, please do.
I do agree with both of you, but I do think that customers have to do some of it because they're the ones who are actually using the product. And I read a stat, and I'll probably quote it wrong, but you'll probably know the actual stat, which is something like 80% of bathroom waste doesn't get recycled, but is only 20% of kitchen waste that doesn't get recycled. And the only reason is because there isn't a recycling bin in the bathroom, and that's the thing that makes the difference. So we tried to do a campaign where we gave everyone a little bag that they could put in their bathroom cupboard, but I mean, how can we get, it's really a very simple thing. Our product could be the greenest, most recyclable product in the world, but if someone can't be bothered to go and stick it in a recycling bin, then we can't stop them. So education has to happen as well.
And ours is what I said before, is education. So with responsibility, you said everyone, and it is everyone. Now, big business has for a long time done their own thing, marketed their own way, and they've done what they wanted to in this area. But actually, it needs to have a bit of piece from the brands, and you also need a bit of legislation, regulation support as well, which is we're seeing in EPR that will be coming in next year. You know, these regulatory changes force that attitude change to sustainability and ensure that you add more material in that is more sustainable or change your direction and help educate brands. The amount of brands I've worked with that actually don't understand the impact they're having and making poor decisions as a consequence is unfortunate, but when you go and you can have that conversation and understand, it's really important that we regulate and also allow the brands to have that leeway. When it comes to consumers, they absolutely, to your point, have a responsibility. But the responsibility of brands for consumers to be able to do that is making your pack convenient. Everything about that we do in this country is based on convenience, from what we've got on our phones through to how close we live to a station or transport or whatever you want here. The network links in London is great, you've got the tube everywhere. It's because it's convenient that it gets used. If you had to drive 20 minutes to use the train, you're less likely to do it than it's on your doorstep. Everything we do is a culture of convenience. And this is actually something we need to change fundamentally, which is a much bigger culture change here. We've seen littering is a big problem, and actually one of the biggest reasons waste doesn't get recycled is littering. So it's understanding how we influence that consumer into changing their behaviour through the tools that we give them. If we make our packs easy to recycle, you have got far more chance than putting it in the right bin than if not. But you're absolutely right, bathrooms nowhere near the recycling bin. Who has a recycling bin in the bathroom? You just don't do it. Okay, there's always one, isn't there?
There's a lovely one with 2 compartments. Highly recommend.
Oh.
Yeah, that is very good. But I mean, if not, you could take it. You know, it's not that difficult to take your bathroom bin and empty it into recycling and the waste. It's just not something people think about. Actually, people see it as bin raiding, and so there's a cultural sort of movement away from it. I don't want to stick my hands in the bin. It's in the bin. It's done. You know, actually, we need to move away from that. It's not dirty. It's normally empty bottles and things. You pick it up, you put it in the recycling. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. I don't want to see your bathroom. But it's moving away from the behaviours that we've fallen into because of convenience. Changing that culture will make a massive opportunity, and brands are unlike anyone else other than retailers with the power they have to communicate this and share that information. The only ones bigger than brands are the retailers themselves, but they're too scared to make the move.
Yeah, there's a few things, aren't there, with discounts if you bring your empties back in beauty, and
But as you say, you're never going to do that because you have to
collect all
remember.
this stuff and
At what
then
point?
take it in. And
At what point do you say to a consumer, actually, I want you to bring 15 different containers to the supermarket? It's no longer convenient anymore, and you end up with the situation that we found with the giant retailers. The reason we call them supermarkets is everything's in one place. Before then, it was farm shops and it was corner shops and it was the smaller people that had the main power. But then we made it so convenient for us to buy what we wanted to buy that actually you don't want to take it. So we're trying to ask people to regress to a time that they don't want to, that it's less convenient and more time consuming. And that is so against the rest of our culture.
absolutely. And Laura, obviously you've done a lot around sustainability. I'd love to know how this has affected your sale, your profit ultimately. Is it you taking a hit or?
For us, it was part of our brand DNA, and so I think it depends on your own brand and sort of your customer. For us, we used it as a way, building product goodness into the products was part of the way we wanted to set our brand apart from any other. The reason I called my brand Evolve was I knew that customers were busy and we needed to help take them on a journey. So from very early on, that was my plan. And I think the other thing, when we're thinking about people changing, when you look over a year, you can't really see the change. But versus when I went into beauty in 2005, you can see the change. There's been a massive arc of change. And 2009, hardly anyone was interested, and now everybody's doing it. So don't despair, it is changing. It just changes a bit slower than you think it does. But with my brand, it's all about locking that goodness into the product and then using that as a way of generating value for the customer who trusts that we've done all the legwork for them, like I said, and we've made a quality product that we can then charge a fair price for. The other thing I didn't say is that we're a living wage and living hours employer. We make the products in Hertfordshire and we pay our workers properly. We don't have them on 0 hours contracts, and that is expensive and more expensive, which means we had to put our prices up this year, and we're competing against brands who make their products probably in a country with much lower labour overhead. So I don't think you can follow some brand strategies and be very sustainable and small. If you're very, very big, yes, you can, because you can make a lot of products and make a little bit on each one. But for us, we have to create a high quality product to do all of the things we do. But when we do that with the customers that we have who value what we do, we can sell it to them and it's something that they want. So I don't think it's made us have a hit on profits, but yes, it is a lot more expensive to make products that way. You just have to sort of get the, charge a fair price for that.
Keep your transparency.
I wanted to add to that.
Yeah,
I think as a new brand, I think that your unit cost tends to be a bit higher because you have lower quantities that you're working with, etc. And I completely agree. I think it's really integrating sustainability into your business is expensive, just because a lot of times you again have to prioritize where do you have to basically take what's the industry standard and work with it, and where do you innovate, because you can't innovate everywhere, otherwise you're going to end up charging a really high price. And for me, I always wanted the brand to be accessible and affordable, so we had to be really strategic with basically like saying, where do we innovate and where do we say this is not our priority. So
tough decisions. Dan, you've worked with lots of brands. Who do you admire? Have you got a great example of who do you admire for their sustainability practices?
I think that I'm going to go outside of beauty for this one, because it's quite relevant, quite recent. But the Lego company.
Yeah.
Now everyone looks at their product and they see plastic and they see but they look at it differently. They innovate at every turn, and they recently decided they would turn all their bricks into PCR material, and they did this for 6 months. At the end of that 6 months, they said we're turning back. And the reason they did that was actually they did the science, they did the research, and they understood that it's more harmful to use PCR in their products than it was to use the virgin material. Now that sounds odd that that's my choice, but the reason that is my choice is because it's okay to be wrong, it's okay to fail, it's okay to go back on a previous promise you've said that we're going to do this, we're going to reduce this, we're going to change that, and say actually no, I've looked at it again and this isn't the right way, there is a better way of doing this. We don't see brands do this very often, because a lot of brands see this as it's going to damage them. We need brands to be bold, to be brave, and to say, really, we've done the research and we understand it better now, and actually we're going back to the way we did it before, or we're finding a new way as an alternative. And I think that's why I've chosen them, is because it's a really brave, difficult decision, but I think the right one that more brands need to take on.
Yeah, thank you. Very exciting. Before we wrap up, what's everyone's one takeaway about what brands should consider when integrating more sustainable practices in their business based on your experience?
I think as a business, obviously, we have to think about sort of, making the right decision sort of from a profit as well. So for instance, we've been looking at these new mail out boxes that are made from this amazing material that is from farm waste, so agricultural waste and they turn it into these boxes that look like cardboard boxes. And we were just having a meeting yesterday about these amazing boxes, but they cost quite a lot. And then we were looking at our other ones that we've got from a more off the shelf that are 70% recycled and 100% recyclable. And actually, you kind of have to make sure you're doing the right. Obviously, we want to do the right thing by sustainable. The 70% off, 70%. We're going to see if we can find 100% recycled and 100% recyclable. We would love to do the farm waste one, but it is 50% more. So it's just sort of weighing up what works for the business, really.
Yeah. More tough decisions.
Yeah.
What's your takeaway?
I think definitely, as we've been saying throughout this conversation, prioritization when it comes to sustainability and defining what it means for you, I think is really important. And focusing on good quality product, because I think the whole point is that people want to come back to you and keep using you. And I think that realistically, I think that has to be at the top of your mind always.
I think it's this definitions piece is super important to start with, and then investigating and researching everything that you look into. If you find something new, ask the why, the what, the where, how. Understand it before you adopt it, so that you know there's no comeback, that you know you're doing that right thing. And then if it isn't the right thing, you later find out something else. Don't be scared to take that back and change your mind.
I'd say don't prioritise it at the expense of a really great product. So where we did that early on with our packaging, we were not successful. Where we found really good win-wins, where we can add value to the product, the customer loves it. So I think that is really helpful if you can find those win-wins. But there are many different ways you can be sustainable. You cannot do them all at the same time, otherwise you'll drive yourself mad. You can find the really great ones for your customer that fit with your product, and then focus on those ones first.
Amazing, thank you. Well, some fascinating insights today. I really appreciate that from everyone. Yeah, I mean, some key themes I think is taking away from this is really around kind of education and how you can take the customer on the journey, and I suppose help them understand some of the challenges around it as well, because that's certainly something. The more we talk about it, the more customers will be able to adopt some of these practices. And then the definition of, I think, is a key one. So thanks, Dan, for that. Of what is your focus on sustainability, and what does good look like for you and your business, and not being able to do it all. And then think about some of those hard decisions. Kind of choose one avenue you're going to go down, and really focus on that one to try and, I suppose, win at that or have more impact with that as well. And be bold. Don't be afraid to try things. Put your hand up if it goes wrong. It's like being at school, isn't it? First job. A bit of a JFDI. Just do it, which can seem scary, but I think also you can then build trust as well with consumers by saying you're trying things and potentially, bringing things back. So thank you to all my panellists, and also just to kind of reference on repeat as well, because I know most of our panellists have worked with On Repeat, who do offer compostable, refillable pouches, which must go in the compostable bin. That's really fast. Which is a great solution that makes it a really easy choice for brands to be able to integrate something into their business with. Just adding a SKU onto your website, with all the fulfillment being done by On Repeat as well. So it's, I think, a great and easy addition to any brand that is skincare, body, hair, for example. It's kind of a really easy win at the moment. So Ben and Michaela here are at the front, so they can chat to you, or certainly send you some samples of what that packaging looks like.